Okay, and welcome to another Wednesday Night Undress, the podcast that reaches places other podcasts don't. Want to welcome the team tonight. Kathleen, the inimitable Jane, Dr. Orlando.
Yo.
Evo is somewhere around. I think he's probably eating fries. He's probably found some fries somewhere. And me, Jeremy Taylor. I want to warn you, you know your microwave is watching you, not to mention what your smart Samsung TV is up to, so no more hanky-panky on the living room floor. Okay, no more hanky-panky on the living room floor. First, a short story from the internet. It's a moment, you know, that all working parents dread. I guess pretty much everybody's seen this clip. A guy called Professor Kelly, an expert on Korean politics, was appearing on the BBC World News. The BBC is the largest broadcaster in the world, but his learned discussion on the 11 o'clock bulletin was interrupted by his toddler daughter, who suddenly burst into his study, swiftly followed by her brother and a baby walker, and finally their harassed mother. Professor Kelly became a worldwide internet sensation within hours. Living in Busan with his wife, Jong-un Kim, he has 2 children, and these 2 tiny scene stealers have now been celebrated around the world. They've been interviewed. He's now much more famous as the dad with the 2 kids than for being an expert on Korean politics. Anyway, a mere second after this happened on live TV, a woman skids into view through the doorway, sliding over the wooden floor in her socks in desperation to reach the errant children. Professor Kelly's wife, who's a yoga teacher, crouches low on the floor in a failed attempt to avoid the camera. Grasping both children firmly in her arms, she steers them back out to where they belong. In an excruciating few seconds, Professor Kelly says to the BBC studio, on air, live on air, he's just closing his eyes. He's so embarrassed. He's despairing. He keeps saying, "My apologies, sorry." He was immediately reassured by millions of new fans around the world who told him it was the funniest video of the year and they'd made his day. It's all very funny, but his wife is Korean and was considered by most, and I'm embarrassed to say including me, to be his nanny. What does that say about us and myself, Lewis, Dr. Orlando?
So I love this. I think that it is, this is a fun yet important topic because, and I'm going to put on my hat as the voice of the downtrodden and traditionally underrepresented and say, I think it is more important that you feel bad about it than the fact that it happened. And here's the way that I break this down in my head. There's a lot of exculpatory evidence that happened in the video. First of all, you're seeing this guy in his business persona. He's in his, official interviewer,
Grey suit.
Exactly. And this woman walks in with, that is harried, and she's also not in a professional garb. So there are some things that are happening in the video that automatically make you think that, make you assume certain dynamics in that relationship. So, I don't think it was completely insane to think that was the help. I think that we have preconceived notions as part of Western society that we've seen that relationship before. We have a preconceived notion about what his wife is supposed to look like, what his kids are supposed to look like, and this thing kind of blows all that up in our faces. And I think that there's 2 ways to handle the realization that is his wife as opposed to the nanny. It's either going to make you stop and question what you think about how people look, how many preconceived notions you have that you don't even question during the day, or you're not going to question it at all. And if you don't question it at all, my feeling is you are a lot more dangerous of a person than if you have a negative feeling about this at all. So for me, I watched the video and I understand exactly why people would make the assumptions that they made. Not to say that they're right, not to say that they are adequate or accurate or anything like that, but I think that they are explainable because of the society that we live in. So for me, the important thing, the thing that made me feel good about you bringing up this story in particular, is that you are acknowledging that thing that most white people in America refuse to acknowledge, and that is that there should be some kind of sensitivity about race and how we perceive race. Like for me, the most dangerously racist thing that I can ever hear is when somebody says, "I don't see color." Like if you're not seeing color, you are not recognizing the individual that you're dealing with. So for me, this is a great entrance into this notion that, for the panel, I mean, a great entrance into the topic of, should we be acknowledging race? Should we be acknowledging the role of women? Should we be talking about all of these things?
Jane.
Okay, so this is actually an interesting, as far as a personal level, because I never thought about it. And I'm sure this is more of like a social status thing. I didn't come from any place that had nannies. I literally watched this thing and I was showing somebody and go, "Oh, wait for it. Oh, mom, there she is. It's mom. Ha, 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 you know." So I hadn't even heard this whole thing where people might have thought that it was a nanny or something. That never even entered my mind.
I didn't assume it was the nanny either.
It's mom.
No.
So
the
maybe it's
video
just me.
of
My country
the
bumpkin.
Korean professor expert.
Korean professor doing an interview online
Yes.
to the
Yeah.
BBC.
I know.
That was hilarious.
It
I
was
did-
hilarious.
Very
But my first thought was, hey, she's younger than I thought. Maybe he's younger than he looks.
Who's
Not
that?
the wife,
girl?
his wife.
The wife who came charging.
Yeah.
Yes, you know,
yeah,
but
yeah.
people
The
think
wife
about
that brought the kids
race.
out.
Yeah.
But a
but
lot of
people
people thought that she was the nanny.
That's
really?
what we're discussing.
Yeah, that's what we're discussing. I'm sorry.
I
you've
see,
Been
I
after
see.
cold steak fries, I know.
Sorry,
But-
I'm late as usual, but my
Hello,
practice ends
Ivo.
at 6, so I come here as fast as I can. So people, and that's the reason we're talking about race, because a lot of people assume that because she's Asian, she's the nanny. Huh, interesting.
Never even entered my mind.
The one thing that I immediately thought of that I can completely empathize with the situation, because it's happened to me, because that's what I do, stuff like this. I've done it for 20 years, or I do reports from my home a lot of times. And I've had, like many times when the kids were young, I was doing it over a phone, and they would start talking or laughing or screaming, and I had to mask it somehow or to just play along with it. Now I think the best reaction in this guy's case was to grab the kid and put him on his knee and just continue. I think that was the only way to save face at this point. I've had the most hilarious thing happen to me very recently, where I was doing a TV live over Skype, just like this guy was doing. Skype interview. And I thought I covered all the bases. Well, my wife had purchased a ridiculous toy for our dog. There was this ridiculous, irregularly shaped thing that rolls on the ground, and as the dog is playing with it, it makes this sound. And so all of a sudden, as I'm talking, this thing starts, and the dog has never played with this before. So I'm just like, what the hell is this? And then I see the dog, and there's nothing I can do. The camera's on me. It's live, and I'm just thinking,
wait, in the background.
I just
Love
said,
that.
I'm sorry, and just it kept going. The stupid dog just kept pushing the ball. And so I was trying to be serious, just like this guy was talking something about South Korea and the impeachment of the president. And he, suddenly he has to keep face and keep going. That was very funny.
Oh, but the guy's impatient. You can tell it is sitting there, and how he closes his eyes slowly.
He
He's
was
just like,
so
Well, and see,
he's like,
this is the thing-
apologies. I'm so
This
sorry.
is the
Kathleen.
thing for me. I'm sorry. This is the thing for me that is for sort of explaining that whole notion of like people assuming that that's his nanny. That for me would have been the most damning thing for him, because he didn't acknowledge his wife at all as she's coming in to grab the kids.
And her pants were unzipped. Her pants were falling. They were all. And she was supposed to take care of the kids and said,
No,
I'm
my
going to make
thought
a
is-
quick run to the bathroom.
She was on the loo, wasn't she?
Yeah.
She was sat on the loo, Kathleen.
Nothing much to say about it except that I felt for her.
Yes.
Yes, that lunge at the end for the door handle. I really could put myself in
I
that
can say
position.
subsequently they have done some more interviews with the kids and mum there.
And with him treating the wife like she's the wife and not
Yeah.
the help. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is very difficult for those of us that broadcast live on air. People who don't, and Eric will know this, if you're particularly if you're just starting a show, and one of the microphones isn't upright or it's just not working, so something, and that people will come into the studio with the best of intentions, and you're concentrating on the person in front of you, what have you, and there's someone just to your side, you want to kill them. You just want them to disappear into the ether. It's very difficult. So I can see how the guy, lost it. Let's move on to another subject. A Reddit discussion started the other day when a guy asked if maybe the new Nike Hijab was not a good thing. His thrust was that hijabs are oppressive at worst, and maybe Nike has made an athletic hijab to profit from this misogyny. I can't say misogyny. Sorry, misogyny. I can't read my own script. Misogyny. Has Nike made some clothing that simply allows women some freedom to compete in sports that they were unable to do before? Or is this Nike trying to score on Muslim sports ladies all over the world? Evo and I spoke about this on the radio the other day.
Yeah.
So let's Evo have the final say, and let's start with Kathleen.
All right. I object to people telling other people that what they're wearing is oppressive or horrible. If that's what somebody chooses to wear, then okay by me. There are plenty of tribes in uncivilized, non-Western civilizations who might tell us that covering up the breast is silly. Yeah.
Under Armour is
But we're
doing
gonna do that.
Under Armour is going to do the Ku Klux Klan hoods. I hear.
So your view is,
If a woman wants to wear a hijab, give her a nice hijab from Nike that she'll be comfortable with. Great, fine.
Lewis, Dr. Orlando.
Honestly, I just thought the question was interesting. I don't have a cogent argument either way.
Yeah, but do you have an opinion?
Not particularly. I guess ultimately I come down on the side of personal choice. If you want to wear a hijab, wear a hijab. I guess the question, the argument that I've heard put forth is that you don't want to wear a hijab, that you are culturally indoctrinated, that it is a requirement, and that becomes oppressive.
So let me throw this one in, and then we'll go to Jane. In France, it's illegal. Jane.
Well, I was wondering, when did they actually release this line?
A couple weeks ago.
A couple of weeks ago.
No,
Okay.
are hijabs illegal or the full covering?
No, you're not allowed to wear clothes or
I thought it was in the
eye
corporate
cottons,
setting.
No, it's in public.
It's
Oh,
in
no.
Well,
public.
shit.
isn't it
You're not
oppressive
allowed
to make men wear trousers instead of kilts? I mean,
Well,
it's
yes,
really
absolutely.
barbaric.
Absolutely
So
barbaric.
shouldn't we outlaw trousers?
Well, see, I was going down a different. I thought about
you're
this
just,
in a
you're
slight-
just strange. You've always wanted
Sorry,
to look
Jane.
up my
We've
guilt,
kind
and
of
you're not
like
going to.
shit all over your.
I
your
literally,
time.
I was thinking,
Yeah, Jane.
thinking
carry
to
on.
myself, well, thank God he's Jane because he has something to say.
Yeah, no, come on, Jane. You finish what you were going to
Well,
say.
no,
Go.
I mean, I had actually watched an interview with some ladies who, and apparently it wasn't Nike because this was about a year ago when they had released a line, and these women were so excited because now they could play tennis, they could play all these, extra sports, and I thought to myself, wow, that's really, really cool. And so the reason I wanted to know when they were starting this line is because is Nike trying to make some kind of statement now or something with all the issues going on with Trump, or are they really just, either way, even if it's just to profit off of or whatever, I think it's really cool that it's opening the door to all of these women who want to do. And
you shouldn't require a person to go against their personal beliefs
Yeah.
in order to play sports with other people.
Yeah.
Where did we end up? I
I'm
can't remember
torn
the
about
video.
it. I'm a little torn about this topic. First of all, personal opinion. It has nothing to do with, permission or anything. But personal opinion, I hate hijabs, and I hate the burqas, and I hate the abayas, and all of that stuff that strips 50% of the population of a certain country from their identity. And I look at it as a tool of oppression to women, and I hate it. At the same
So are
time,
high heels.
yeah. At the same time, they, that's their culture. They want to do it. I don't think it's our place to interfere. Now, we talked about Bilqis Abdul-Qadir. Bilqis Abdul-Qadir is an incredible basketball player, one of the best in the world. She broke Rebecca Lobo's record for most points scored in high school in the state of Massachusetts. And Rebecca Lobo is a legend, obviously, and to beat her record was incredible. What's even more incredible, Bilqis was only 5'8". She's a tiny player, so fast and so prolific as a scorer and unguardable that she was incredible. She went on to play in college, went to Memphis, University of Memphis, tore her ACL in her freshman year, so it kind of crippled her career in college, but she's now back at full strength and is willing to play abroad as a professional. Now, Bilqis, she played covered. She played with a hijab, which for listeners, hijab is basically a scarf. It has to cover your hair, and it has to cover. It goes down to over your chest, and then when in certain denominations of Islam, girls are not allowed after puberty to show skin, except for their hands and their face. Now, if you're familiar with the Quran and the story in the Quran, there's nothing in the Quran that says women should be covering their skin. The only thing that is quoted in the Quran in this on this topic is that both men and women should dress modestly.
Yeah.
That's it. But at some point, men took over interpretation, twisted it around, pushed it on the women, and it became about women covering, and men can do whatever they want.
Go figure.
Sounds like corporate dress codes to me.
So what?
And Christianity, and pretty much every time there's a guy in charge.
But Bilqis was the first collegiate player to play with a hijab and completely covered with Under Armour.
Wow.
Completely covered, and it was tough. You can imagine how hot you get and the disadvantage you are against the other players. But she still, became the first one and kind of a pioneer. Now, FIBA has forbidden her to play. The International Federation of Basketball Associations, FIBA, has said that she cannot play abroad as a professional because it's against the rules, and they say we don't want any kind of religious expression on the basketball court, and we want to keep it religion neutral. So she is not allowed to play, and it's kind of a tragedy. Also, FIFA, the soccer governing body, has forbidden any Muslim women to wear hijabs while they play soccer. And this is kind of devastating because finally Iranians have allowed women to play soccer after many years. Saudi Arabians, Yemeni, they're getting kind of there. So now all these women that all their lives they just wanted to play, they wanted to have the opportunity to play, they finally are allowed to play by their country, but they're not allowed to play by the Europeans, by FIFA. So where does that leave them? On the bench, on the sideline, looking in, and again, suffering.
How can a sports organization justify banning something on the basis of person's beliefs?
It is complicated, and I think part of it has to do with the deluge of refugees in Europe, in Western Europe, and the fact that there's an immediate self-segregation. And you've been to Britain lately, and I've been to Britain lately, and Western Europe, and you can see that there's just a massive proliferation of the full burqas the hijabs and all this everywhere, and it's also becoming kind of a segregated community where there's basically cities within the cities where this is an accepted norm. And I think this raised a lot of red flags among the West Europeans.
It's going to help
I think this is a reaction.
to say that you can't wear this garb and play with us. That's going to help integration. That's going to make things worse.
Probably. Now we have a situation also. Ibtihaj Muhammad. She's the first Olympic medal winner, American Muslim woman who competed with hijab. Ibtihaj, and I was mesmerized by her because she's incredible. She's a fencer. She's a saber fencer, and I got caught up in this. I'm guilty of getting caught up in the international competition between the countries for most medals, which is silly and very nationalistic. But I couldn't help wanting us to beat China and get more medals than China in the Olympic Games because it's such a big thing for China, and because they make it a government policy.
Yeah.
And and I was like, man, I want to beat these China.
Not
and
even a pretense of being
and we were
amateurs,
tied
yeah.
with China for most medals, and then came Ibtihaj Muhammad. And I was like counting every medal, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's got a chance to get a bronze medal, and that's going to put us ahead of China. And I was rooting for her, and she was incredible. She was competing with all the fencing stuff and the freaking hijab,
Right.
all the masks. And so she was sweating, like dying under all this covering, and she got the medal, and she was incredible and very, very like acrobatic.
Uh-huh.
And she brought honor to our country, huge honor, and the entire country was cheering for her. And at that moment, they disregarded the hijab. Nobody saw the hijab. But guess what? The hijab is an incredible profiling trigger, immediate profiling trigger. So our Olympic medal, she got profiled time and again and was detained at an airport, American airport, because for the simple reason that she was wearing a hijab and had the name Ibtihaj Muhammad. So,
it's interesting you should say that because Muhammad Ali's son was pulled over by the immigration people a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
He's been now pulled over again, and they did exactly the same thing as they did to him 2 weeks ago. 2 hours he was
detained.
He was detained for. But what I found more interesting than that was and we're going off the subject, is the story of a 70-year-old Australian woman who was detained by the immigration people for over 2 hours and questioned. And she was so upset about the way that she was treated, she flew straight back to Australia. And she said, I can understand them pulling over a black person, right?
Why would you understand
Muslim.
that?
No, but what she meant was, I can understand them why they might do. It's not right.
But she understands profiling.
But now I understand profiling. I'm 70, overweight, and white Australian. I've come to talk about children's books. And the point is, I suppose that it sort of leads me on to the next question. With Ivo and I both being Europeans, Ivo's a European, I'm British.
Brexit.
England is only so big. In fact, if you draw a line around the main island of England, it's actually smaller than the state of Kansas, believe it or not. And
I believe it. We're awesome.
There's only so much room, right? There's only so much room. And someone said to me the other day, is the USA simply granting too many visas? What would happen, for example, if the USA said, we are only going to grant family visas? No more visas for a year or two for people who want to come here for any other reason than
we're getting there. We're
married to somebody or someone's child or something like that.
Yeah, except we generate $10 billion a year from tourism.
Yeah,
it's a giant industry. It's
to live visa. I mean
to live here.
To stay here visa.
Oh, I don't think we issue many of those. It's almost impossible. It's so hard to come here, on other than tourist visa. And now H-1B visas are being massively
curtailed,
so
Melania wouldn't have got here.
Who?
Melania.
We're moving into, and Louis can probably talk about. We're moving into a dangerous zone of becoming a police
danger zone.
Police state, yeah, where we are closing our borders and turning into this weird hermit state, which scares me because one of the policies that have made this country great is the brain drain program, is the attracting the best of the world. This is what Steve Jobs, guys, Steve Jobs' father is Syrian. Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah.
We would not have Apple. Trump wouldn't have a phone to tweet on if not for Steve Jobs' Syrian father. If he was in charge back then, he wouldn't have come here. Elon Musk is African. Come on, guys. We gotta get real and remember what made this country great and stop, trying to shackle the very processes that made us excel and be the best of the best.
Dr. Orlando.
So, full disclosure, I was the one that gave Jeremy this question, and it was because of an interview Fareed Zakaria did on the Star Talk podcast. During the podcast, Fareed basically was answering Neil's question about whether or not we should just have a qualifier for people to come into the country.
Yeah.
If you have your PhD, you can come in. And Fareed's response was, well, we do a lot of the family visas, and we're probably doing too many of those and need to do more of the other. And so my immediate thought, and just to finish his thought, the next thing he said was, but we should keep in mind that we never fully know the potential of immigrants until they get here.
Yeah, Steve Jobs' father didn't have a PhD.
Right, right. But so I had like a bunch of questions that developed from that. First of all, are those two comments contradictory? Can it be possible that we're letting too many non-technical people in if we are seriously going to pay attention to the potential of the people that we're letting in? That seems to be contradictory, and so because of that, is Fareed Zakaria simply we've heard this thing about immigrants ruining the country or coming over and taking over the country. Have we just heard that so many times that Fareed Zakaria is just kind of repeating that as, part of the common knowledge in America? Everybody knows there's too many immigrants. Or does he have some deeper knowledge about how many people we've let in and how many people what would be a tipping point for society to become unstable because of the number of immigrants?
He, of course, is an immigrant himself.
He is an immigrant himself, and so that's
India, right?
Yeah, and so that was the interesting thing. So I started. I figured I would look at some factoids. So I looked at the immigration numbers, and I got these numbers from a website. Holy shit, Conroy! What the fuck?
You're upset about something. I'm sorry about this.
I don't know. He's
gentlemen.
like killing someone.
I think he slid on an old steak fry there and fell into a table. Try and keep going, Dr. Orlando. I know it's difficult.
Not a problem. Okay, so there's this site that I went to called the American Community Survey, and it said that in 2015 we had 43 million immigrants in the country, about 13% of the population, and they compared it with 1970 when we had 9 million immigrants, about 4% of the population. So we've had literally a triple.
You're talking first generation immigrants.
First generation immigrants, yeah. They actually do give figures for first and second generation immigrants too. 87 million first and second generation immigrants, which turns out to be about 27% of society in America. Which, to my understanding, basically means that immigrants are a lot more visible, that you can actually have things like mini cities like Chinatown or, Little Italy, or, I'm sorry, we're talking about the Middle Easterners, so it's got to be, little Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Any. Yeah, but you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. So those are just kind of the numbers to give you the understanding of how. And I looked up also how many visas America gives out.
Yeah.
And essentially the number should be around 480,000 a year. But that includes people that are already here. So once you get your visa, apparently.
What do you mean by should?
That 480,000 number?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is inclusive of the non citizen folk that are here.
So that's a typical number.
Yeah, that is
Okay.
a typical number,
All right.
but it's not an actual number because the second generation immigrants actually push that number over whatever
Okay.
We're really underpopulated in the United States compared to density in other countries and continents, and we can accept many more. The problem is also one of the parties, the ruling parties in the United States, is afraid of new immigrants because they instantly became voters for the other party.
Right.
So they want
that's
to
a
limit
different
as
question, though.
yeah.
I think no. This is actually one of the questions that I came up with while I was going through this stuff. Like, is there a tipping point for how many immigrants a country could take? I mean, we could, as America, as part of our credo, we could take anybody that comes in. But can we take anybody that comes in?
Yeah.
Well, is that the question people are asking, though?
No, that's
To
completely
me-
not the question people are asking.
What I'm saying is, people are not objecting to numbers of immigrants. They are objecting to people of certain religions. Muhammad Ali, the second
No.
time he came in, he was asked, Muhammad Ali's
Yeah.
son, he was asked, what religion are you? And the mistake he made and the reason he got pulled in the back room was
Muslim.
he said, why in the world would you even ask that question?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who
but
has the right to ask me what religion I am when I'm coming into my country?
Those guys at the border, they have very, very broad rights. They can do whatever they want. It's really bizarre. You don't even have a phone call, the right to a phone call, because you're considered to be on nobody's land, on no man's land. It's really weird. And what is the heck is up with detaining poor son of Muhammad Ali every 5 minutes? It's ridiculous. Like, he's more often detained than not detained at this point. He's probably, he's being detained right now as we speak. It's ridiculous.
I think it's very important I just jump in here. Having been pulled over by the immigration people myself and interviewed,
Yeah.
as the
and
Australian
there
lady
are
said.
very few people whiter than you, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Owen Wilson,
It
Nicole
was-
Kidman's
yeah,
Soul, Ghost.
Stevie
it
Nicks'
was
lingerie.
a horrible experience. In all seriousness, it was an experience. And as that lady said, the Australian lady said, she felt that if Americans, the average Americans, had actually been there and seen it, they would have been horrified. And I felt
suspect
much the
she's
same
right.
thing.
I suspect she's wrong. I suspect that there's about 35 million Americans that would have cheered.
Really.
Not if they'd been there in person. They cheer the idea of keeping people out, but they assume that all these people that are being kept out are unlike them and mysterious and
are you
suspicious.
familiar
I think you're
with
giving them too much
I
credit.
say this all the
Well,
time. I'm
maybe.
always saying this. It is one thing to read it. It's one thing to hear it. It's another thing to see it.
Yeah.
So I think you have a point, Kath.
Are
I think
you
if people actually saw
People,
it,
they were punching people at Trump rallies. We're not talking about people that are
And they were being
compassionate.
encouraged to do that by the candidate.
But this is
I
my-
think there is no doubt that if you watch a lot of the media, if you're involved with the media and all this sort of thing, there is no doubt that there is a large proportion of America who don't actually care what Trump tweets and what have you, and that isn't going to come home to roost for Trump until they realise that they're actually going to lose the health care, and I use the word care, not coverage, on purpose, and they realise that he made a load of promises he can't possibly do. Let's move on. Last one today. Only 28 years.
Odd ending to that.
28 years ago, only 28 years ago, Tim Berners-Lee submitted his original proposal for the World Wide Web. 28 years ago. Seems like 5 minutes. He imagined the web as an open platform that would allow everyone, everywhere, to share information, access opportunities, and collaborate across geographic and cultural boundaries. Over the past 12 months, he's become increasingly worried about 3 new trends, which he believes must be tackled in order for the web to fulfill its true potential as a tool that serves all of humanity. 1, he says we've lost control of our personal data. 2, it's just too easy for misinformation to spread around on the web. And 3, political advertising online needs transparency and understanding. With the stuff that's been in the media recently about our microwaves and TVs looking at it, us, when my wife and I are going at it on the living room carpet.
Hey.
Oh, you said I
Trust
could
me,
share
we
that.
all know
No, I
already. We've
didn't.
got direct feeds into
We've lost control of our personal data. What do we think about that? I mean, we've got
We've
some.
kind of talked about this before. I've been of the opinion that we lost control of our personal data right around the time I was 8 years old. So,
But what about the rest of it? The political advertising online needs transparency. Can you imagine? Okay, picture this. Every ad has to start out with a representative of the group that's funding it saying, "Hello, my name is so-and-so. I'm from the so-and-so group, and we are presenting an ad that is for A and against B," or vice versa.
yeah, but
How would that help?
why would we start with the online ads when we still got TV, radio, and print ads? That
Well, all
do
ads. All ads.
But again, Tim Berners-Lee's point was that this is a problem with the internet. It's not a problem with the internet. It's a problem with knowledge. It's a problem with information. We've never been in control of our information. For as long as we've had databases that companies can keep on us, we've never had control of our information. As far as political ads being misleading, they've always been misleading. What was the third one? Too easy for misinformation to
Political
spread on
advertising,
the
yeah.
web. You mean sort of like the whole yellow journalism scare that we study in school? Like
That's true.
This is
It's
all,
always happened like that.
This is all blaming the tool for people being shits.
Yeah, shits and stupid.
Something's got to take the blame
education.
besides fucking people.
For years, I mean, Pearl Harbor is a classic example for the Americans, saying, well, we didn't know it was going to happen and all that and what have you. But what do you think? I mean, do you care about personal data? I mean,
Most people don't care
online
until
banking.
it's stolen in
Until
their.
it burns
Yeah.
them in the ass.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a topic that you don't really necessarily think about, or you just assume that it's gonna happen no matter what. Like you said, it's inevitable. There's a sense of inevitability that when you go online, whatever you do, you're being watched. And then when your information gets stolen, when you get hit in your account, your banking account, or whatever, that's when you realize, my God, this is a disaster.
But it's
And-
not even just the fact that your identity might get stolen or that your own personal money. It's the fact that your information is used to target you in ways you don't recognize.
Oh yeah.
Sales calls that know exactly how much you make and who your contacts are.
Or
That sort of
or
thing.
even Black Mirror situation.
I don't think these guys have seen Black Mirror. You got to explain that
Yeah,
a little
please.
bit more.
It's in my queue. I haven't seen it yet.
Black Mirror is basically technology gone crazy, gone rogue. It's like the Twilight Zone, where technology comes around and attacks you. And there's horrible scenarios in this show, and I have a hard time watching this show because each episode is spectacular. Very high production value, ingeniously written, fantastic acting and casting, except it always ends horribly. There's always unhappy end, and it's always devastating, and there's like a really nasty residue that it leaves with you after you watch it. Really nasty.
Yeah.
It's kind of a mean-spirited show, but it warns you about all the things that technology can do to us. And so we have Black Mirror situations happening all around us. I told you about the documentary Tickled. Did I tell you about Tickled?
No.
You didn't tell me, but I've seen it. Yeah.
So yeah, you gotta watch a documentary called Tickled, and this is a spectacular documentary, and it's an actual real life Black Mirror situation.
Okay.
And
Believe it as you're watching it.
it's hard to believe
Okay.
what's
I am
happening.
gonna look for that.
But
Tickled.
this stuff with data, with identity, with ways that the internet can strike at you are endless, and it's gonna continue. And yeah, you're right. It's nefarious and it's dark. and it's right here, and we have to deal with it. Do we become hermits? Do we become Ted Kaczynskis and go,
or do we
into
just
seclusion?
drink a whole lot?
Build firewalls and stuff, but they can go for anything nowadays. Yes.
So there's this this new thing that I've heard about, and it is so effective right now that Google Chrome has banned it. It is a new approach to thwart people from collecting data about you. It is an app that's currently called Ad Nauseam. Mm-hmm. They talked about it on it wasn't Radio Lab. It was one of the podcasts we listened to.
Yes.
Anyway, what this application does is it sits on your computer in the background, and any ad that appears on it, it clicks it for you in the background. Totally fucks with the database that's being kept on
Everything gets clicked.
Everything gets clicked. So not only does it get clicked for you, it throws off the profile that companies and governments and whoever is building for you. It obfuscates the big data, what they use for the data mining. Like, this is an approach that could potentially render a lot of the internet-based complaints that people have about big data
love it.
Rendered moot. But installing it means that Google Chrome, the folks at Alphabet, can't advertise to you as well. So they've gotten rid of it. You can't use this on Google Chrome anymore because it is effective. But I find it interesting that people are now looking for ways to turn the tables on the advertisers. Like, the advertisers literally capture data about us without our knowledge, without our consent, and use it again without our knowledge, without our consent.
Yeah.
Hey, it's taken the old trick of when you get something in the mail that says return postage paid, here's the ads for this old folks home or hearing aids or whatever, and you put a brick in there and send it back to them. Same thing.
And for somebody that actually uses it for marketing at his work, I gotta tell you that Facebook, I don't know if you know it, but this is not a social network. Facebook is data harvesting engine. The purpose of Facebook is to collect data of you and sell it to advertisers and to companies, and that's really its main function. And they're making billions and billions of dollars.
Speaking of which,
and
if anybody ever
I'm
sends
guilty
you
of doing it.
one of those, what type of flower are you type quizzes on Facebook, absolutely
get your
do not fill it out.
Pirate name.
No,
what do you like
exactly,
best?
Exactly.
Yes.
Those are literally methods that not only Facebook but the third-party app designers are using to collect data about us.
So maybe as we wind this up, Tim Berners-Lee, speaking very recently, has a point. And we maybe just
he
have
doesn't have
more.
a point. He's full of crap.
He's the guy that just started the internet.
Yeah, but his points are trivially true at best. To say that the internet is any more or less culpable than TV or radio is just silly.
I was thinking, whoever starts a news company right now, brand new from scratch, so clean slate news company, and uses the marketing device of this news company, every story we publish is checked 5 times at least from independent sources. They will make a ton of money because there's an overload of fake news, unchecked stories, and if somebody starts this company, gets the right name, the right, good reporters, and says this story, every story, we guarantee it's true.
It's called the BBC.
5 times. It's called the BBC. I don't know.
But then all they have to do is say something that goes against Donald Trump, and it will be fake as well.
No, they'll say, this story, we checked it 5 times, independent sources, here they are, So.
Yeah, we just don't have anything that we look at as an authority. And I don't mean we as the people on the podcast. I mean society, our society, the American society in the second half of the first half of the 21st century. We're at this place where nobody can tell us what's right from wrong or what's truth from lie.
Fake news is a problem, and it's become a monstrosity, a monstrous device.
Let me talk about something that's not fake to wind this up tonight. The thousands and thousands of people who are kind enough to listen to our podcast
in the future. We're not talking about now.
I want to talk to my friend Ivo about a new thing that has recently gone regional. It's not national yet, but it is certainly a regional thing, and that is the Even-Off.
Oh, the Even-Off.
The Even-Off is a new drink.
Yes.
It has
It has
what
rum.
in it?
It has rum, and it has ginger ale.
Is that
and-
shaken or stirred, Mr. Evo?
It's not shaken or
It's
stirred.
undisturbed.
In fact, to be honest, it's stroked.
It's stroked.
Yeah.
It's stroked. It's well stroked. Well stroked. You know what? I usually come here and I order what every woman wants: a single toe Even-Off. Stroked, not stirred.
Yes, it's got to be stroked, not stirred. It's very important. So when you go into your local bar, folks, and you order an Even-Off, it is critical that you say, I want it stroked, not stirred,
or shaken. And a little bit of mint, sprinkle a little bit of mint, a slice of lime, do 2/3, maybe even more, ginger ale, and a little bit of rum, and it's absolutely heavenly.
Next
Single
week,
toe Even-Off.
Next week, we'll be talking about what goes in to make a Bundy. You've been listening to Wednesday Night Undressed with Kathleen, Jane, Ivo, me, Jeremy Taylor, and the famous Dr. Orlando. I want to thank the engineer team today. Of course, Eric and Neil. Yes, thank you guys for coming in. You've been listening to Wednesday Night Undressed.
Hey!